Gentlemen, we're starting our last session of the day. We will be looking at a very important issue. As you see here, the motto is a sustainable science bridge between the U.S. and Turkey. That's what TASSA is about. So it's about this bridge. And how can we make this bridge smooth, which is full of traffic, congested. We love congestion as far as this bridge is concerned. So therefore, that has some responsibility on the governments involved. And with that objective, 2 years ago, a science agreement was signed between the U.S. and Turkey, and which will pave into much interesting projects in the future. But as far as I'm concerned, that agreement is empty. İçi boş in terms of Turkish. So therefore, we will debate those issues. In contrast to my colleague Murat's sessions, I'm going to let the speakers talk only 10 minutes, and I'm an enforcer. And then I will let the session go Q&A. So therefore, more people are involved. So I will let our dear Deputy Minister, who was really gracious enough to take time off, come here through his busy schedule in a very short notice. And he will start the talk. Dr. Kavranoglu is a Caltech engineer. He was a professor in Turkey. He's an academician. So I don't consider him too much as a politician or bureaucracy, more of an academician, to tell you the truth. And Dr. Margolis is the same. You know, he has an academic background. I know, and he's a very good friend. Actually, it is. You know, we had some interactions over time. He really means what he says. So let's see what they have got to say. So, Dr. Kavranoglu, let's start with you.
Thank you very much, Professor Davut. It's a great pleasure to be among such a distinguished group of Turkish-American scientists and scholars. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I congratulate the organizing committee for being able to bring about 500-something people in such a short time. And people took time, their weekend off, and came over here to discuss what we can do as Turkish-American scientists and scholars here in America and in Turkey altogether. So this is a great venture to get into, and I am honored to be a part of this. I also consider myself as a part of this community here because I was a student at Caltech, and later on I was a professor for a while as well. And I have a feeling of how you think and how you feel, and it will be my job to strengthen our links between US and Turkey and how we can collaborate as Turkish-American scientists and Turkey and vice versa. The developments of science and technology, and especially information technologies, telecommunications, and internet, had caused a great revolution in the world order. These changes started with the downfall of Soviet Empire, the Berlin Wall, transformation of China, and it is still going on with Arab Spring and all of the social and economic changes that are happening around the world. These changes in technology are having a natural effect in forcing closed and oppressive regimes to fall and be replaced by some kind of democracy. As we observe all around the world, the people can now easily move around, get educated, and informed about other people's living conditions and human rights they enjoy. They are demanding to be treated as an equal human being in their own society and in the global human society. people do not accept to be treated as a second class because of who their father is and which part of the world they live in. As the boundaries of countries become less and less significant, people move around and have access to the best education in the most advanced countries and universities around the world. And all of us here belong to those kind of people. 100 years ago, or even 30 years ago, a child of a poor family was destined to stay poor, since being rich required availability of capital, and capital was always in the hands of a few. Information technologies and internet changed the equation altogether. Today, anybody can change his own destiny. All he or she needs is a good education, which is much more available for everybody compared to 30 years ago. These fundamental changes are resulting in poorer countries to start improving quickly and closing the gap. We can see this in many examples, such as India, China, Turkey, and other countries. The effect of technological developments is proving that the second law of thermodynamics is true for social sciences as well. We are having economical developments in poorer countries approach richer countries as the mobility of information, capital, and human capital increases. And this situation makes the whole world one market. Now, when we talk about economies, we do not talk about a country's economy individually. It's an interactive economy, and every country, whatever is happening in one country affects what's happening in another country. In our ministry, when somebody wants to come and ask us to support him for some investment he wants to do, and he tells us that I am doing for this is useful for Turkey for such and such area, or I am planning to manufacture a product for Turkish market, then we tell him, go and revise your vision and come back and tell us what you want to do for the world market. So the whole way of looking at things are fundamentally changed because of this interactive nature of today's world economics. Dear friends, Turkey has come a long way since 1980, after President Özal became the main player in Turkish economy. In early 80s, Turkish export was about $1.5 billion, and this Turkish exports was $1.5 billion, and this was mostly some agricultural goods and some mineral like chromite and things like that. After 20 years, till 2002, Turkish economy came from $1.5 billion to $35 billion export level. And in the last 10 years, during the current government, we were able to reach to $135 billion in 10 years. And in 2002, our income per capita was $2,700. Now it is more than $10,000 income per capita. Of course, this is a very modest level that we are enjoying today. Compared to past 30 years ago, we grew like 100 folds. But when you compare it to Germany, today Germany has annual export of $1.5 trillion of exports. And their size is about the size of Turkey, and their population is comparable to Turkey. And we have about 3-something million Turkish people living there as well. So our aim is to come to a level of $500 billion of export in about 10 years' time. In year 2023, we want to bring our economy to a level that we can export $500 billion of goods. So this is 1/3 of what Germany is today. Therefore, this is not something we can really brag about. Why should we have why should we settle for 1/3 of what Germany is doing today? But this is, again, development goes stage by stage. So $500 billion is a good target for the medium term. But we should be doing at least as good as Germany is doing today. And hopefully after 2023 targets, in 2040, we will say we would like to be at least same as Germany. So that's what we look at. Now, how do we go from where we are now exporting $135 billion worth of good, and we want to go to $500 billion. So it is about 3.5 times of what we have today. We cannot do this by exporting, let's say, 3 times as much tomatoes or cucumbers, or 3 times as much of shirts. So the only way to go is science and technology. Therefore, we need to transform our economy into a high-tech economy. We are working towards having new and dominant part of our economy should be high-tech economy with high value-added products. And this can only be with the contribution of scientists like yourself. So as Turkish government, we look forward to working with all Turkish scientists and other scientists around the world to work with us to have technological development and new industries start in Turkey, transform the Turkish industry with our joint effort. We are not asking you to move back to Turkey. We would like you to stay here to serve American economy, but let's have good channels of cooperation between Turkey and America so that we can have both countries benefit from this. Our way of looking at international relations and international business is a win-win approach. We believe that for one country to benefit, the other country doesn't have to lose. We can, by collaborating in science and technology, we can have both sides of the equation to benefit from it, and both sides can have much more than what they would have alone. Therefore, we look forward to cooperation in science and technology, and our government is taking measures to attract science and technology investment in Turkey. I know some of you in this hall already visited me and showed interest on that they want to have high-tech investment in Turkey, and they know that we had our arms open for them. And we took their advice for the investment, and we reflected that in our new upcoming industrial law that we are just about to pass in the parliament. In this manner, to be able to facilitate scientific and technological exchange between Turkey and developed countries, we are about to start science diplomacy, and we will start with our offices in San Francisco and Boston, Germany, and Tokyo. So the first 2 ones will be in the United States. The structure of this will be that we will have an attaché for science in these centers, and we will also have a prominent scientist acting as our ambassador for science in that region, and they will have their own council of up to 20 people. So we want to touch base with all our scientists in that region, and we want flow of information in both directions. We want to help them, and we want them to help us with their ideas. So we want full cooperation, and would like to see all our scientists around the world to work for one aim, to make Turkey better and to serve the country they are in. Thank you very much, and I'm not going to make it long so that we can take some questions.
Well, good afternoon, or I should say good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come here. I wanted to thank Professor Unal for the terrific operations here. It's really very impressive. I got to tell you that I've been here only just a couple of hours, but the overwhelming reactions that I'm getting from people, the enthusiasm here is quite palpable. So let me just thank him, thank TASSA, thank the University of Maryland for taking the time to organize this event. I also wanted to thank Ambassador Tan for his participation throughout the day and wonderful remarks earlier today. And also, if I could, thank Davut, because Davut and I have had a chance to chat a number of times now, going back many months, and we're both relatively new in our current jobs. Both share a real love for things technology-based and internet-based, and I think we share a heartfelt enthusiasm for the powerful role that science can play to advance society's goals. So with that, let me say a word or two about the way the United States views science and technology and its overall approach domestically. American leadership in technological advances and scientific research is a major source of our economic, foreign policy, and national security strength. Today, it's estimated that America's knowledge-based industries represent 40% of our economic growth and 60% of our exports. These industries are built on science and technology. Sustaining a vibrant, knowledge-based economy provides an opportunity for our citizens to prosper and enjoy upward mobility. As President Obama has said, we will harness the power of science to achieve our goals, to preserve our environment, and protect our national security, to create the jobs of the future, and live longer and healthier lives. Even in these tough economic climates here in the United States, the budget now before the United States Congress that President Obama submitted last month called for strong, sustained federal investments in research and development. It called for investments in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education. And it called for investments in infrastructure. Our budget last year for R&D, our federal budget for R&D activities was approximately $150 billion spent last year. The budget emphasizes the role science will play in solving future global challenges through investments in fundamental research, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, health, and education. In addition to the economic benefits, the way scientists do their work, what I would call the conduct of science, reveals certain deeply held value systems. The processes of merit review, critical thinking, data-driven decision-making reinforce key aspects of the way I think we all would like to see society function, namely with transparency, accountability, and based on meritocracy. We in the federal government recognize the importance of science in our own decision-making processes. To give you an example, within the State Department, we have a suite of different programs that bring scientists at various stages of their careers into the department for 1 to 2 year stints. And I myself, that's how I came to the department, for a 1-year stint 20 years ago. Somehow I just never figured out how to leave. But while we in government have in-house expertise, we are also fortunate to have the National Academies of Science, and we turn to them routinely for expert independent advice to advise the government on our operations. A key aspect of our approach to science and technology in the United States is the whole area of innovation. In the United States, we believe that innovation requires an ecosystem to flourish. And here's what I mean by an ecosystem. It involves investments in research, in infrastructure, creating intellectual property rights and bankruptcy laws, in other words, the regulatory structure, human capital, education and the like, and the key ingredient, patience. Many of the best examples that we have in the United States of successful innovation efforts come not at the federal level, but at the state and local level, where universities, companies, and local governments have formed innovation clusters. But there's no fixed formula. Sometimes even with all the right ingredients, certain innovation clusters fail, while others flourish. And there's also a cultural aspect to this that involves tolerance for risk and recognition that past failures can provide lessons for future success. In the United States, we have many examples of individuals willing to take risks to pursue their dreams. And I have a good friend who's now on his 5th startup. He's on his 5th startup because the previous 4 have failed. Yet both of us, whenever we talk about this, we both hope that the next one, we really believe this, the next one is the one that's going to work. We are committed in the United States to this science, technology, innovation agenda domestically. And we want to work internationally on this approach as well. Science diplomacy, a term that Davut used, is a central component of America's 21st century statecraft agenda. The scientific partnerships that we build with other nations and international ties among universities and research labs are a mean to address shared challenges and add to our collective knowledge. These partnerships also help strengthen our diplomatic relationships because science is based on disciplines and values that transcends politics, language, borders, and cultures. Processes that define the scientific community, such as merit review, critical thinking, diversity of thought, are fundamental values for which the global community can reap benefits. And the globalization of science affords the opportunity to reinforce these basic values. I believe that the US-Turkey science and technology relationship can play a key role in this effort. The United States and Turkey have a long history of science and technology cooperation. And even though Professor Unal might call it an empty relationship, I don't know if that's true. I just wanted to give you a couple of things that I would point to that maybe suggest a more optimistic assessment of where we are between the United States and Turkey in our S&T relationship. Our National Science Foundation and the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey have collaborated on a large number of joint research projects, and currently there are over 61 active NSF awards involving collaborations with Turkey. The majority of these grants focus on social and behavioral sciences, geosciences, and engineering. There are approximately somewhere between 15, 20 new awards that are made annually involving Turkish institutions. In the area of health, the National Institutes of Health maintains a range of relationships with Turkish research institutions and researchers on such topics of cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, and HIV. There are lots of opportunities now between the US national labs, and they're deepening their existing work with Turkey, in particular in the area of energy, to help Turkey meet its goal of generating 30% of its energy from renewable resources by 2023, and increasing the energy efficiency of Turkey's energy approach. I think you guys know better than I, Turkey is seismically active, and the US Geological Survey has a long history of collaborating with Turkey. These cooperative efforts are helping to better understand Turkey's seismicity and hopefully reduce the destruction from any potential future earthquakes. In 2011, the US-Turkey Fulbright program exported 81 Americans and 140 Turks to participate in educational exchanges. And we in the United States very much appreciate that 60 of these American participants were co-funded by the Turkish Higher Education Council. Both the US and Turkey share a focus on attracting young people into the sciences. NASA and the Turkish Ministry of Education collaborate on an education program to provide students in primary and secondary schools with firsthand experience in environmental research and monitoring. You got to get them young. Let me turn finally to our relationship on innovation and entrepreneurship, where we have a growing and vibrant relationship. We're working through one partnership, the Partners for a New Beginning, which is a public-private partnership led by former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, the Coca-Cola Company's CEO Mutter Kent, and the Aspen Institute's President Walter Isaacson. This effort is setting up local chapters of entrepreneurs in a dozen or so locations around the world to expand economic opportunities, and it has a major focus on science and technology and education. One of the first such chapters, local chapters, was set up in Turkey. And starting this past August, the program is now working with 60 Turkish women to create new entrepreneurial opportunities. We have a global entrepreneurship program that we run out of the State Department. It's planning to send a delegation of American investors to Turkey to meet with Turkish startups to develop higher education curricula that incentivize researchers to innovate and to help Turkish technoparks develop greater business incubator capacity. Another program that we run out of the State Department is called our Global Innovation Through Science and Technology Initiative, and it provides innovation and entrepreneurship capacity building activities through competitions and contests. Last year, we call it GIST, Global Innovation, Science and Technology, we ran an idea competition We asked innovators around the world to make 2-minute video pitches about their inventions and then post those videos on YouTube. We got almost 200 videos from 21 countries, and the winners of this competition were announced at the 2011 Global Entrepreneurship Summit that was hosted by Prime Minister Erdogan in Istanbul. The semifinalists attended the conference and received business development training and mentorship by experts, entrepreneurs, and investors. GIST has more activities planned for 2012, including a technology startup camp in Istanbul, and that's going to be administered through the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, to help young scientists develop the skills they need to turn their innovative ideas into products, companies, and jobs. So I hope you get the impression that there's a lot going on, and I'm delighted that all these activities received a huge boost forward by the 2010 signing of the new Science and Technology Cooperation Agreement between the United States and Turkey. We in the United States see this as ushering in a new level of increased cooperation where we will work together to tackle the challenges facing both our countries. And I hope I can leave you on that positive note. Just thank you for your attention this afternoon. I hope I met the 10-minute deadline. I'm happy to take your questions.
Just a quick question for Dr. Margolis. Turkey is getting into this innovation very recently, and made in Turkey is all over the world. It's a wonderful vision, and there's a lot of resources now. And here in the U.S., this started after the Second World War. We have lots of experience. In your mind, what are the things that we should avoid doing in Turkey because it failed here?
Well, you've already hit probably the key thing to keep in mind. I've alluded to this already. I won't try to articulate the entire approach that we've taken in the United States on innovation and what sort of things to avoid, but here's the thing that you have to expect: failure. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that I know when I talk about innovation, work on innovation with countries that are just getting on the trajectory to look into the whole question of innovation. It's building, leaving aside the regulatory and policy framework, which you have ample expertise in, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that. It's building this whole cultural approach where folks who are going to enter the entrepreneurship world, the innovation world, many will fail. And you can have bankruptcy laws that help deal with that. In the United States, we have very soft landing bankruptcy laws, which makes it easy for someone to fail. It's not a good thing to fail, don't get me wrong, but you have to expect it. You have to build in place a way to make sure that if a venture fails, or if an innovation fails, or if a company fails, the stigma isn't huge, and that company or the individuals can then get up on their feet again, second chance, third chance, fourth chance. What I've found, and you'll all be the better judge than I will ever be of whether this is something to address in Turkey in specific, is that countries that haven't had that experience, that initial failure can sometimes be such an impediment to individuals wanting to take that risk, whether it's because of family views, or banking availability of money, or the whole social structure, that it slows down that key willingness, that key inspiration. And so one of the things that some of the programs I described that we're trying to work on, try to deal with that specific issue. How do you help foster a culture? We did this using YouTube. I can tell you more about that experience, but not that it's okay to fail, but that it's okay to risk. Take that risk, take that step. And that's more of a social answer than it is a policy answer. There's lots of policy issues with it. Let me stop there and see if that satisfies you.
Very good. Good question? Yes.
My question is to Mr. Minister. And if you compare the Turkish export and the German export, and the goal to 2023 is really nice. But how are they going to compete with the Mercedes or Bosch or Miele companies? We don't have those products in our brand, first of all, and we can, I think the Prime Minister is trying to push the private companies to produce a car. But my question actually relates
Yes, thank you very much for this beautiful question. But this takes a whole lecture to talk about. That's the reason we said that we are not trying to reach Germany by the year 2023. We want to reach 1/3 of where Germany is today. And to be able to, when we look at Germany, what Germany has is high technology, precise technology, high technology, high value-added technologies. And Mercedes, BMW, these are very high value-added technology. When you look at the material used in a cheap car, it's almost the same as used in a Mercedes, but Mercedes is 10 times what a cheap car costs. You see, we have to transform our entire system somehow to form an ecosystem that fosters technological development. We cannot order it to happen. We cannot just say that, guys, high tech, do it. It cannot happen. We have to change our ways and means of doing business. We have to reform our university system. We have to reform how our industry and university interacts with each other, how they collaborate. Of course, we will have incentives for investment in Turkey, but this is by itself is not going to be enough. And what my dear friend said here, for example, a small but important thing is bankruptcy law. In Turkey, if you go bankrupt, you are doomed. You don't have a chance to come back in a foreseeable future. So we have to, if we form the right environment for a cactus to grow, after a while cactus will grow there. But if you form a right environment for orange to grow, then it will happen there. But if you cannot have an environment for cactus and expect orange to flourish there. So we are aware of this and we are looking into things in a very basic level. That's why we talk about reforming our university system. Our university system has to be very productive and interactive with our industry. We have to make sure that our government university professors can get ways and means of improving their financial situation. And we would like to make the universities and the industry dependent of each other, that they love each other and they cannot do without each other. They feel that way. This is basically in a few sentences how I can summarize it. But we have to reform everything with regards to this. It cannot happen by selling more cucumbers and more tomatoes to Russia. So we have to really get into high tech and change the environment for that to foster.
Very good. Well, let me ask you, since I'm the moderator here, I have the floor here, so let me ask you a follow-up question, which we were discussing during the break with some friends. Some interesting thing is happening in Turkey about higher education, which is the topic tomorrow too. A good example is if you look at the table, we have a job market paper, listings that people wanted to sign up and talk to the universities. I ask you to look at it on your way out. It's very interesting. The market says something, so the people want to apply more to foundation universities and private universities than the state universities. So it's the state universities are feeling that it's a great disadvantage to attract the market. Or market's attention, and they are colossal. You're talking about Istanbul University or Istanbul Technical University. These are thousands of years old. It's no joke. So, and then when we talk about science and so on, that's where the masses. Yes. So that's where the masses. So, how do we, if we can find a way to revitalize that system and get it market-oriented and getting business-oriented, getting thing, we will, go a long way. So what is that we're doing or we're planning to do or we have envisioning to do that on both fronts. Like, for example, when you go as U.S. State Department, do you talk to Istanbul University, or do you go to Koç? So do you go to, so what is that preference that determines your decision where to go? I'd like to know that.
So who's really want to answer?
Yeah, go, both of you.
See, our universities in Turkey, they are more like a school you go after high school. Unfortunately, the current situation, they have no interaction with the real life in Turkey. Most of them are like that, except a few universities. They have no interaction with what's going on in the country. Universities should be places of finding solutions for the problems in industry. Universities should be enlightening the society and showing the directions and opening new directions for the industry. They should bring out patents, new technologies, and be able to attract investment and have startups and things like this. This is not rocket science, and we have examples here in the US and many other examples around the world. We have to convert our system into such a system. And this requires, of course, this is not a mistake or failure of the universities themselves, this is a failure of the Turkish state because of the university laws and the constitution we have is restrictive and does not allow such an ecosystem and such a flourishing to happen. And of course, our professors and our universities work very hard under current circumstances, but this is how much they can achieve, even these restrictions. Therefore, we are looking at, for example, one thing is we are starting as our ministry some incentive for our university professors that we are telling them, just go out of the university, find a small business you think that you can help. Write up a project, we will pay you 2,000 Turkish liras amount for each company you help. So that will have interaction, that will encourage university professors to interact with the industry, and their financial situation will improve, and those small businesses will benefit from their academic knowledge, for example. But this is just a small touch, but we have to change the whole environment for it.
Sorry. I'll tell you it's sort of a story. But this part of my job, as I've already alluded to, is it's a tremendous privilege. I get to go around to various countries around the world and talk about these kinds of issues, innovation and the like, and oftentimes it's with the universities. More often than not, it's with government officials. And sometimes it's with entrepreneurs. The fun part is when you're talking to the entrepreneurs. But here's the story I wanted to tell you that a little bit less than a year ago, I had a chance to do that type of thing with a number of countries that were either in the process of going through what we now call the Arab Spring, or were about to go through the Arab Spring, although they may not have known it at that point. And I was having a conversation with a number of representatives of higher education universities in a couple of these countries, and asked the question, what does your university do? What's its business? And the answer was, our university is in the business of issuing degrees. And there were a few entrepreneurs also participating in this discussion, and I didn't have to respond. They jumped in, well, that's wrong. You want to be in the business of attracting individuals who get degrees, who then have the skills to go out and improve society somewhere, whether it's getting a job or whatever it might be. That should be your business model, not granting degrees. And this was viewed as a threat from the perspective of the university, because exactly as Davut was referring to, that involves a rather fundamental change of how the university is structured, what it might be doing. And in the United States, not that we're a model to follow necessarily, because there are so many models that have to be adapted here, but we've got a very different university approach. If you talk to both state schools and our private university system, many of them will have, for example, one of the things that Davut mentioned specifically, there might be an intellectual property office on the university campus, which helps researchers figure out A, how to patent whatever it is they're working on, and B, what to do with those patents once they have them. And it's a whole mentality that the university takes upon itself and says, again, we're not issuing degrees and we're not just collecting patents. We're trying to help the individuals in the university figure out how to make contributions. And I guess that's a mental shift, a mentality shift that, for whatever reason, not so much maybe at the federal level, more at the state and local level, as I mentioned already. The United States has just been incredibly fortunate in having a number of university systems that are set up that way. And many of our universities are eager to share that kind of experience with international partners overseas.
You're good.
I'd just like to point out that Deputy Minister yourself, government policies to encourage interaction between industry and universities is always a good thing. But in doing so, one has to maintain a very long-term perspective. Because in trying to encourage R&D, it's very easy to end up just doing D, which is no good. I think research is done at the universities, and some development at companies can be helped by university professors, but the actual thing that will take us from 150 billion to 500 billion is R. So we must make sure that curiosity-driven research that is only done at universities is also funded by your ministry, and I know that you are going to do that because when you visited my university, we talked about it. But I just wanted to underscore the fact that R&D is very important. Industry has to look at the university not as one that solves its problems in mid to short term, but in the long term. In other words, they should pursue the unknown unknown rather than the known unknown. The unknown unknown, which is going to take down an industry or make it fly 10 years from now, cannot be investigated in their own R&D division. It can only come from where bright people are, which is at the university.
Very good. Very good. Yes, you are right.
Couldn't agree more.
We have to have basic science be supported, and you see this. When we say R&D, research should be supported by like something like NSF is doing here, and we should have another institution that is dealing with the industry and their product development. Like we are saying that we are going to have new automobile, Turkish automobile. We are going to have Turkish plane for regional flights. We are going to have a space program. All these things require our way of looking at industry to be restructured fundamentally. So we have to streamline this in both directions. When you have one institution supporting academic research and at the same time supporting somebody developing a new part for an automobile, that doesn't fit. It's like using the same hammer for a big bolt and a very small nut to crack. So it's not gonna work. So you have to have specialized way of looking at both things. Academic research and industrial product development should be looked into, and it should be done in their own perfect fit. I totally agree.
Thank you. There's well, yes.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with everything you said about the development and how to triple the exports in Turkey. Turkey has to invest in research and development. But I'm going to be a little bit critical about what this gentleman said about the industry, because universities can do a great job in developing science and technology and invent, but the innovation part is going to come from industry. Universities cannot productize the research results. If the end industry has to take it to the market. So
Depends on which university.
all universities, it doesn't depend on which university. Universities are not in the business of taking products to market.
Well,
Universities are in the R&D business.
But they are in the business of developing the product.
No, they don't develop it. They don't develop the
Then it
product.
could be marketed.
Let's not have a panel there.
So I think my question to the Deputy Minister is, what are the incentives in Turkey to motivate and stimulate the collaboration between industry and the university? And what are the incentives to take the research into the market for the industry? Are there programs you are developing?
Also, can we have people introduce themselves so we get to know each other?
That's true. That's a very good idea. So from now on, let's do it.
So
Yeah, why don't you introduce
Okay,
yourself?
I'm Sinan Tümer. I work for SAP Research.
Okay, and then,
Uranina, Koç Üniversitesi.
yeah.
First of all, we are in the process of we are preparing a law for patents and licensing, and it should probably within the next month it should be in the parliament. So we are working on these things, so that universities we will have license offices for the patents developed and for the R&D, for the research done in the universities and patent generated, how they can be licensed, how the university and the researcher and industry can benefit from that. So we would like to, we are now working on it, and it's, I believe it's a state-of-the-art work that is being done, and we have been working on it. Hopefully it's going to be a part of that ecosystem that we are talking about. Ecosystem, of course, will include many other things, but it's going to be an important component of that ecosystem. That when you do a good job, you benefit from it, your institution benefits from it, and when the industry comes, industry has something that university can offer to the industry. You see, how will the industry benefit from this is that you have thousands of PhDs in the universities, people with PhD in the best of the universities. They sit there and they just lecture, and they forget about, most of them, most of the universities, unfortunately, they forget about conducting any basic research or applied research. Why? Because nobody is expecting that from them. They are expected to teach and do other administrative work. It's a pity for them and for the country. So by creating this environment and letting them benefit personally, that their financial situation improves twofold, threefold, I'm sure everybody will work harder. So it's again a win-win situation for everybody.
There's a question there, yes.
I mean, what the
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm a grad student here. I'm Margolis from Turkey. I mean, what the government is doing is great in collaboration between the industries and universities, and the government is increasing the funding for the education. But the problem is the power of the universities comes from the students. But the students in Turkey has no incentive to study harder, because with the new regulations in Turkey, like there is no way you can get kicked out of the school. You can finish the 4-year program in 10 years. There's no limits on it. And the school is free in Turkey. And there are over hundreds of universities in Turkey now. If you open your book, if a student opens his book, gets some, and studies a little bit, he gets into universities for sure. But I mean, whatever we do, we can bring all these great professors to Turkey, we give them the best resources. But first, the students need to have incentives to study harder. They need to have a competition. But there is no competition in Turkey in the universities. Maybe in the higher level, maybe in the research level. But what is coming from the ground, from undergrad, there is no real competition in Turkey. It's what we need to create that.
So there is lots of competition. You see, the competition starts after you graduate. It's not, the universities are now just issuing degrees, but how good that degree is, we will find out after you graduate. So if you are good in the university and who wants to hire somebody who graduated in 10 years? Is there anybody in this room who would like to hire somebody finished school in 10 years? I don't think the competition is there. But that's what you're talking about is something that is taking care of the problems of the past. It doesn't meant to be really for the students. You can take your time because you have so many years to live and you don't want to spend 10 years of it in school. I mean, these university students are supposed to be smart people. But I agree with you, our university system has to be totally overhauled. I mean, we need to have an up-to-date and competitive and encouraging university system. I agree to that, but in those specifics, I'm sure when our government is doing the new law, all these things will be considered, taken care of. But there are more important problems than that in our system.
Hüseyin Bey.
Hüseyin Davut, San Diego Emeritus, Boğaziçi, Sabancı, among other places. My question is TASSA-centered. Turkish question for TASSA people.
By the way, Hüseyin Bey is in the transition team who took the TASSA, was working with us in the last 2 years, bringing to this point.
Now, this agreement, what do you expect from us, TASSA, or do you expect anything? And number two, for the audience, what are the carrots? Okay. So why we should do it and how we will do it comes afterwards, and we have to know the coordinates of the play. If we don't know, we can have all desires, as Haluk Bey said, Bosch, according to him, is very cool, so we have to know the coordinates of the game, otherwise the game is uncharted and you don't know the score.
What we yes, I also got that. What we expect from TASSA is, you see, I said in my short speech that we are considering all our scientists around the world as member of one team. We would like TASSA as a civil initiative to be a medium of interaction with Turkish scientists and even non-Turkish American scientists, an environment, a medium to interact, and to do also our science diplomacy that we are establishing here. You see, we will have in San Francisco our science ambassador, let's say, it's not going to have that exact name, but let's say science ambassador, and 20 people in that council. They don't have to be Turkish. They can be people, let's say in San Francisco, you have a council that has somebody from Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, and some prominent companies, that they get together once a month, they talk about what needs to be done, you advise us. You see, we will be part of one team. We will email each other, we will visit each other, we will talk about projects, what we can do. So what we are doing here on an irregular basis, we will be doing that on an institutional basis. We'll be always in touch. I also would like to bring to your attention that we started to form a database of Turkish scientists around the world. In our website of our ministry, we just started 2 weeks ago, and I don't know if you passed around the information for our website. We invite you all to sign up in the database. We are going to have a gathering of Turkish scientists around the world in Turkey during the summer. We did not determine the date yet. We will invite all of you to get together in Turkey, not only from the US, but from all around the world. We will get together and maybe have some specialist groups formed there to talk about projects. We are planning to start some projects like President Kennedy started in the 60s, said that by the end of this decade we will go to the moon and come back. And America did that. And we all watched it on TV. And it was that kind of, maybe going to the moon and coming back by itself is not that important. So what is on the moon? Just some dust. But the amount of technology developed to go there and come back includes everything. Therefore, we are going to have this kind of projects. So what those projects should be? Okay, we have some idea, of course. We are discussing them with people around us, the scientific circles around us. But we need really all of you to act like one team and advise us with your immense accumulation of information. what we should do and what should be our going to the moon projects.
With that note,
I don't know
need
if
to.
that clarifies or if that is enough.
That's the TASSA.
Yes, TASSA is the tool for the American scientists to get together and to feed us. And both ways, this is how we are going to touch the American scientists, our students as well as our scientists. This is how we will interact. It's very important to have.
You want to go to us?
Yes, we will go to you. Absolutely.
That's an answer.
Yes.
Dr. Margolis, you want to say a few words,
Yeah,
and then
just-
we're going to end it?
Yeah, just a quick observation. In the session that I attended earlier, preceding this one, you did something I think which is really quite insightful. You had young researchers presenting their work. They presented the information from a substantive technical perspective, but clearly the organizers here asked them to do something else. They asked them to talk about their autobiography. How did they get to where they are today? What was the track? And it's a remarkably important insight that an organization like TASSA can bring to bear, which is it's not only the science, it's how the scientist got to where he or she is. And Davut used a phrase that we use quite a bit in the State Department, science diplomacy. And we have a whole bunch of ideas and programs that we work on this. But there's a piece of this that I wanted to elaborate on, and it's the science for public diplomacy, not just the back and forth between the scientists, but how you engage the public communities. And that's what I'd ask you guys to think about a little bit on the TASSA side. I know I will walk away from this meeting incredibly impressed with the range of expertise that this organization represents. And if there were a way to we can talk about how that might be done, but if there were ways to take the cream of the crop, the individuals who can, if back in Turkey, talk to, at the university setting, to the professors and upcoming students, here's what your life could be. Here's some of the things, here's some of the opportunities that are available. Here's a ministry that's willing to work with you. That can be incredibly powerful in the mission that the deputy minister has identified for his ministry. That's a very heavy lift, not only in space rocket terms, but even here on Earth. That's transforming the entire university system, the export goals that you have for yourselves, the S&T culture that you're trying to create. So I think I can see a role for TASSA as well in helping to tell that story. We make quite a bit of use of US scientists overseas when they travel to tell those stories as well. And that's just something to think about as how do you integrate that into your overall approach.
By the way,
Excellent.
let me add, please.
Oh, okay.
You see, all these goals, we cannot do it alone. We can only do it with you, the Turkish scientists in Turkey and around the world. If you just let us do the work by ourselves, sorry, it's not gonna work. We cannot do that. It's gonna be a joint effort. We will do it as a team, one team, all around the world, distributed, but one team. We will work together. That's the only way we can achieve our aim. There is no other way.
I see. I get the message. It says that you gotta fill it up. So, so that was a good homework. With that note, let's party time.